Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Josh Hammer with AWS. We're just going to get started now. I'd like to thank everyone for participating. We're going to talk about how application security provider Veracode boosted cloud visibility and compliance. So what I'm going to first talk about is we're going to talk about how working with AWS can actually help you elevate and improve your security while using the cloud. In my role as a partner solution architect for security partners, I work with our largest security software vendors to help our mutual customers enhance their security postures as they run on AWS. And when we look at traditional security, it was always hard because you were responsible for so many controls, physical isolations of storage and servers, network isolation. You had to also update hypervisors. And by the time you got through a lot of those security features and just infrastructure management, you had to then support security services or authentication services. And you ended up having a lot of heavy lifting to do to just keep everything going. And automation was difficult because servers are physical. You had to move them and adjust them and change them and plug them in and out. I remember I did a data center move once, and we had a server, we didn't know whose it was. Luckily, we turned it off. We took the risk decision that it would be okay. We moved it to another data center and plugged it back in. And I still to this day don't know what it was and what it was even doing. That whole lack of visibility comes because there was no easy way to understand everything that was running in my data center. So we ended up with this challenge. We can either move fast or stay secure. Now with AWS, however, you can actually move fast and stay secure. Because when using AWS, we're taking care of a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting that you had to do previously. And we are actually supporting some of the most sensitive workloads today on AWS, whether it's analyzing billions of brokerage transactions records for FINRA, or helping ZocDocs migrate their existing application to a serverless and cloud-based system so that they could focus on solving patient and provider problems. Or Vodafone, who actually developed a payment system so that customers could add additional credits to their SIM card so they can keep talking. All of these across a highly regulated set of industries, from financial services to healthcare to customer retail. So how does this all come together, and how do we help you elevate your security? Well, first, security at AWS is job zero. We support millions of active customers, from enterprises to startups, who also want to ensure that they are secure. And we started by building a core infrastructure that's built to meet the stringent requirements of security. It's monitored 24/7 to ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those same people who are monitoring our infrastructure are also building and maintaining and innovating security tools and solutions that you too can use to help you automate your security in AWS. And we also have the largest network of partners. And our partners are not only all of the software integrators and consulting partners out there, it's also software security vendors like Check Point that can help our customers enhance and elevate their security as well. AWS has more compliance standards than any other. And as a customer, when you build on AWS, you inherit these security and compliance and regulatory frameworks when you start building your app. We actually have over 203 significant compliance, security, and governance controls today. You control where your data is stored. You can access it, determine who can access it, where, and you have the ability to decide who can consume it. We give you this ability to do it with fine-grained identity and access management controls, monitoring solutions so that you can understand in near real time what's going on with your access. And you can actually learn to reduce risk at scale. And you do this by using automation and detecting malicious activities. And you can use those automations, alerts, and monitoring and ingest it into your existing infrastructure and your existing workflow and your existing processes so that you can respond and react the same way, in similar ways that you would in your existing world today. AWS is vigilant about your privacy because customers care about security, and we want to help them be able to do that. You can build a secure global service for your customers. We have 69 availability zones across 22 different regions. And when you're building, we have the tools that allow you to easily encrypt your data, be it at transit or at rest. To do this, we've integrated 52 services with our key management service called KMS. Or if you're looking for something more physical, we have our Cloud HSM, which is a FIPS 140-2 Level 3 validated HSM. And also with these regions, you don't have to use them all. And you can always select where your data resides for data residency requirements and restrictions. So that control is also in your hands. Automating with security is actually crucial because it actually reduces human error. The more you can change something that used to be someone going in and making a click or running an update or writing or putting parameters into a script, the better chance you'll have of avoiding configuration errors. And it actually also gives teams the ability to focus on the more important things about speeding up the business, developing new solutions, helping enhance the existing posture. And that automation can be at the both infrastructure and application. And our partners like Check Point actually can help you aggregate this. They will give you that kind of visibility across your environment so that you can aggregate all the information that we're providing via APIs and understand how your security groups are configured across your infrastructure so that you can then focus on how to respond to those changes. This all comes down to the idea of a shared responsibility model. And that idea is that security in the cloud is the customer's responsibility. That's the idea that the applications that you build in the cloud, you're responsible for controlling. But security of the cloud is AWS's responsibility. So that means a lot of those things that you had in the previous world about creating the physical isolation and network segregations, you're not responsible for it. AWS underneath the hypervisor has taken care of all of that. We take care of that hypervisor patching. We give you these tools to be able to build with. And then it's your responsibility now to take those tools and respond. So what does that really mean in the world? So we'll take two services. One is called EC2, Elastic Computing. And what that does is that's virtual servers. So you're not responsible for the hypervisor, but we're going to give you a fully running host OS. You have the ability to determine who can access that server. You're responsible for patching it. You're responsible for determining who can access it via the network security groups. All of that is your responsibility, what applications you install and how they run. Now, if you look at another service that's very common, which is S3, which is our object store, that you don't actually have those responsibilities. You have an object, you create a bucket, you determine who can access that bucket, you decide which policies you might want to control from data retention and assorted, but there's no host operating system to patch. There's no additional work for you to do at that point. You just go put your objects there and access them as you need. So each one of those has different controls and different levels that a customer is responsible for. For a service like S3, there's a lot less. It's more controlling access and understanding the permissions. Whereas for EC2, you're responsible for many of the standard operation and tasks you've had to do on your existing on-premises servers, like how do you manage updates and how do you control access.
AWS provides a variety of security solutions to help our customers work with our partners to meet their security requirements for their part of the shared responsibility model. Identity and access management is the first place to start because it defines the door that accesses your AWS account and where your applications will reside. For that, we have IAM, and that provides you with a variety of ways to support roles, groups, and policies to protect access to your content and resources. And it can be granular to the point of a resource to actions. To be able to manage those, we provide you with AWS organizations so that you can define those policies and roles across the multiple accounts in your AWS organization, because AWS accounts themselves are one of the hardest boundaries that we can provide to you. We also provide you with other tools like Secrets Manager to help you manage credentials for your applications like databases and other applications. And then if you wanted to share resources from one account to another, we provide AWS Resource Access Manager. Now, the real area that I like to look at that our partners really help enrich is detective controls. Detective controls cover the broad spectrum of both the responsibility of how you configure your AWS account to the things that are running in your AWS account. And one of the first places to start with that is AWS CloudTrail. I always ask all of my customers to make sure they have CloudTrail turned on. And if anyone doesn't have it turned on, I recommend they go turn it on now. It gives you all the logs of all the API calls made against your AWS account. And with that information, you can actually gain intelligence. Who's using what permissions? Or perhaps is someone coming in from a malicious IP address? And that information can be found in solutions like GuardDuty, and it can also be enriched and leveraged by solutions like CloudGuard Dome9. Then there's something called CloudWatch. And CloudWatch stores logs. Now those logs can be metrics for instances running, or as well as custom attributes for things, and even log services for our Lambda serverless applications. And then we have the VPC flow logs. And these are running in the VPC that gives you information about who was connecting to what and what the size of the packet was and whether it was successful. And it can be very useful for doing analytics and analysis, as well as it can be useful for troubleshooting. When you look at the infrastructure protection piece, this is where you're building your applications with whether you're using containers or EC2. And we start with the virtual private cloud. This is your data center in AWS. And we provide a variety of ways to segregate them through subnets, through routing, connect them together with transit gateways, even mirror traffic with our traffic mirroring solution. And our partners help enrich this as well. You can deploy CloudGuard as a firewall deployment to protect your external facing web applications the same way you do on premises. And then there's another paradigm that I always like to bring up here when I talk about infrastructure protection. Because one of the things that happens when you adopt AWS is you start to realize that you can automate so much more. And you come to this paradigm of pets versus cattle. Pets are something you want to care for and nurture and take care of. And cattle, if something happens, you can always go buy a new one. And with that model, we always like to focus on the idea of how do you manage those. And AWS System Manager has a lot of solutions to help you manage those pets and even some of the cattle that are a little longer living than you expect. Because you need to figure out how to secure and manage both the servers that may be ephemeral and the servers that are going to be here for a long time. From a data protection perspective, we have the ability to analyze and look at things for encryption. So think about KMS, which is our key management service, for allowing you to encrypt things like your EBS block volumes and S3 objects to almost 50 other services. And with those, you can use symmetric keys to encrypt the data. Then we have Cloud HSM, which is for those that need additional FIPS 140-2 level 3 compliance. One of my favorites is actually AWS Certificate Manager, because I had the experience once where I was running an application and our certificate expired on the external web app, and it brought down the application. The next day, we had an Nagios monitor to check for the certificate expiration, but AWS Certificate Manager takes care of that. It'll rotate it, does all that for you. And then there's incident response. And this is where I think our partners really help add a lot of value, because they not only help you understand what incidents are in your environment by understanding misconfigurations perhaps in your cloud and taking in feedback from things like GuardDuty, but they can also help you respond back by either triggering Lambdas or tying into your existing workflow engines to be able to respond quickly and efficiently. I'd like to turn it over now, and thank you for your time.
Thank you again, Josh. Appreciate your section of the presentation. My name is Munir Jalal. I'm the head of product marketing around cloud security for Check Point. What I want to talk to you about today is really a couple of things. One, I want to talk to you about how you can take 6 easy steps to automate your cloud compliance journey. We'll go through that step by step, but then I want to bring in CloudGuard Dome9 and talk about how Dome9 will actually help you through those steps. And then what I want to do then is hand it off to one of our reputable customers who's using the solution. Ryan Davis will talk to you from Veracode about how they use CloudGuard to meet their business needs. So before we get into that, I know I have to put this slide up. It's an important one around Check Point. If you do not know Check Point, Check Point is a leader in the cybersecurity space. It is a provider of both software and hardware for IT security, most notably network security, cloud security, mobile security, endpoint security, data security, and obviously security management. And we're obviously going to drill into the cloud security side of the fence, in particular CloudGuard Dome9. And so beyond that, the company, in terms of size today, I'd roughly estimate around about over 5,000 employees. Most notably, we're an innovator in the technology space. We actually have a very strong leadership in the R&D space. And most importantly, we're an AP and advanced technology partner with AWS. So let's talk about CloudGuard Dome9. So CloudGuard Dome9 is an innovative service that allows your enterprise to easily manage the security and compliancy within public cloud. And I'm talking AWS here. In particular, obviously, there's a number of public cloud providers out there that we support, but AWS is something we're going to focus on today. CloudGuard does offer technologies to also visualize and assess security posture. It can detect misconfigurations in your public cloud, and also can model and actively enforce standards, whatever they are, gold, silver, bronze standards within your cloud. It can protect against attacks and insider threats, and it also can provide threat intelligence through threat analytics. And that's it's a product we're not going to get into in too much details, but I will do a plug-in here. It's the CloudGuard Logic product that we launched a couple of months ago. The other thing that is very notable here is we do this in an agentless manner. There's no downloads of software, there's no updates, there's no patching. Everything just works using native cloud APIs. And that's the beauty around the solution. So we'll come back to Dome9 in a second, and we'll discuss in detail the features. But I want to get into the 6 steps that I discussed in terms of automating your cloud compliance journey. So the first step is really about gaining visibility. And you begin by first understanding your cloud environment. Ask yourself the question, what cloud assets do you have in your environment? What levels of exposure is there to the internet for those assets? Are there any particular security groups that you should be aware of? And is there traffic? Is there network traffic running between certain points, ingress, egress? Where is it going? That's a lot to digest. And if you think about the tools that are available in the cloud, there's a number of native tools available today, but there's also third-party tools out there that will help you visualize the architecture, help you to understand the topology and to see into the cloud. The cloud's a pretty complex beast, right? So there's a lot there. And so looking out for those tools will help you accelerate that whole process. So that's step number 1. So step number 2 is selecting a framework, a compliance framework. And it really depends. It depends on your business, what your needs are. You may select a PCI, a SOC 2, HIPAA framework, but choose the one that is more important for you and the one that's going to work for you. Then it's about determining which cloud assets are in scope, out of scope. It really depends, and it depends on what you define as sensitive information inside your enterprise. You may decide that certain things are lower risk and don't need to be in scope. You can always come back and adjust that in terms of that framework, but it's important for you to define what is the scope inside that framework. Step number 3 is evaluating the results and then starting to plan. So you need to run an initial assessment. So run your assessment and take a look at the results. You'll see there's a lot of alerts that will come back, and some of those are signaled, some of those are noise, and you may decide that you need to exclude certain things. You may decide certain things are lower risk items or lower risk assets. So it's important to have your operations team look through all those alerts and decide what is important, what is not, and to make exclusions or apply exclusions. And then you may have a need to customize and apply certain rules, additional rules. Beyond that, there's certain things that may have not been caught. You may adjust and course correct and apply additional rules to it. So that's step number 3. Moving on to step number 4, it's about running compliancy as well as monitoring and remediating. You need to define how frequent you're going to do this. Is your cloud environment changing more frequently than ever? Is it changing a lot? Do you need to do this on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis? It really is up to you. So it's about sitting down with your security operations team and deciding what is frequent. And then it's also it's about identifying the owners. Who are the owners who are going to take a look at the alerts and what the results are? You may split this up based on segments within your enterprise for certain owners to look at it, but allocate the right owners to do that. It's important that those owners are signing up so they're actually looking at the results and they're making course corrections or actions. The other part to this is really integration. And so you may have your own processes already. You may have your own tools. You may have your own way of kind of integrating within your enterprise. And so as part of that whole process, it's about saying to yourself, what tools do we have today? Do we need to integrate with, say, a Jira tool or a ServiceNow tool to be able to capture those compliance requirements? The fifth step here is about automating remediation. And I say this with kind of caution, and it depends on how mature you are, how scalable your cloud is. You may decide to automate certain findings. You may decide that, there are certain limited findings like public-facing storage or unencrypted databases that need to be corrected. Automation is a great way of running and correcting those things. You may just start out with a low, limited set of findings and then grow as you need. You may just tag certain resources if they're misconfigured, just so you can actually be alerted. But automate remediation is an important step in the whole process. The last step I do want to cover, and it's an important one for keeping record, is around showing compliancy through reporting. So as you run continuously compliancy in your cloud, you've got to keep a record of that. So obviously, you can be audited, and it's important to show that you are compliant, you are up to date. The cloud is complex and it's always changing. So depending again on your frequency, you're going to run compliance reports, and then you'll be able to look back at those and say that you're in compliance. Okay, so that's the 6 steps there. I do want to jump into how CloudGuard Dome9 features complement that. So CloudGuard Dome9 itself is a really innovative solution. It comes with a lot of whiz and bang in terms of features, in terms of just visualization and inventory. It's able to look into your cloud and assess and understand what assets are there, what's connecting to what. It does also provide you auto remediation through a feature called CloudBots, where it can accelerate the resolution of, say, dangerously misconfigured assets and enforce compliance. It has the ability to provide privileged identity protection for protecting against compromised credentials and identity theft. And it's doing that again, as I mentioned, it's doing that through native capabilities. And here it's doing that through native IAM capabilities itself. And then finally, there's tamper protection. So obviously, as you're trying to run behind misconfigurations or out of compliance issues, things inadvertently may get reverted back. And so somebody may want to do their job and may, open up an asset to the public internet again, and as you've just got to enclose it. So having the ability to kind of, come back and revert things again in an automated fashion is really helpful. And so CloudGuard Dome9 provides that. It's able to revert things back. As things get changed again, they get reverted back. The last piece I want to cover, again, another plugin for CloudGuard Dome9. We did launch that product recently. It's a pretty awesome native security solution that provides and delivers cloud intrusion detection, network traffic visualization, and really just activity that's going on inside your cloud environment. It provides you context in the situation where you have a lot of data, a lot of logs to look at, and be able to kind of piece things together. So this last slide here before I hand it over to Ryan, it is a bit of a detailed slide, but the way I read this, and you should read this, is kind of from left to right. And so CloudGuard Dome9, as I mentioned, is pretty cloud native. It integrates with a lot of native scanners through APIs, as well as interfaces to cloud configuration or asset configuration. It is tied into identity access management in a native manner. And it's doing that to pull in the information, to also use APIs to make changes as need be. It's not proprietary in any way. It is pretty agnostic. I would say I'd like to boast from an environment perspective. We obviously support bare metal and VMs. Containerization, serverless is just around the corner. We have proof of concepts around that. But if you look at what, again, just to resonate the key things around Dome9, it is a very comprehensive cloud compliance and governance engine. Lots and lots of frameworks. Okay, it will help you do the job of remediate. It will provide auto remediation. It will identify and protect assets. It will protect your network from attacks as well. And it's doing this all, again, agentless. There's no downloads. There's no software updates. And the last thing to kind of put the layer on the cake is really a logic. Again, as I mentioned, it's an incident response and networking troubleshooting tool. The last cool thing I like to talk about, which is what on the right, is the integration to kind of other platforms. I mentioned a few of those: ServiceNow, Jira. Can even tie into Slack if that's an environment that you guys are used to. It also is kind of a platform that ties into other third-party logging platforms, and we have a lot of those. Splunk here is an example. There's a number of other logging platforms that are available. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Ryan, who, as I said, is a reputable customer for us. Veracode is the customer, and I'll give him the intro here, and he can fill in the rest. But he wants to take you through essentially what really is the use of CloudGuard Dome9 and how that helped with their business and solution.
Great, thank you, Monier. I truly appreciate you taking the time, and appreciate Josh as well kicking things off earlier. For me, I could probably pretty much stop here. Josh and Monier have already covered a lot of the reasons why we selected both of them as partners. But for this next section, what I'd really like to do is give the audience just a good frame as to why we ended up choosing these two partners and the value for us and our customers, quite frankly. So with that, let's go ahead and kind of jump into things here. So my name is Ryan Davis. I am the Chief Information Security Officer over here at Veracode. What that means for us, and for me more specifically, is we do, me and my team do all things information security, risk and compliance, legal aspects of contracts. For me, at the end of the day, my job boils down to, are we doing the right things from a security perspective, and then ultimately can we prove them to our customers? So Veracode is a software security company. We've been around for about 15 years now. If you don't know who we are, our mission statement is we secure the software that runs the world. How do we do that? Well, we basically offer one of the world's best application security platforms to enable our customers to go and scan their own software and find vulnerabilities in it, whether that's a compiled application or a website, or even looking at third-party components. We also offer developer training and education, as well as remediation guidance and e-learning. It kind of runs the gamut. On a historical basis, we've scanned over 8 trillion lines of code. For us, that's a huge stat, right? Like, that's a ridiculous amount of code to sift through. And if you look at the next column, we've helped our customers fix over 36 million flaws inside of their applications. That's a huge number of things that we've basically taken out of the applications of the world. And these are applications that mean something to you and I on a daily basis. It's your, banking applications. It's your application that allows you to start your car on your mobile phone, all of those. So they're really meaningful applications, and security is of importance to all of us. So Veracode is been recognized as a 5-time Magic Quadrant leader. We have over 2,000 customers across a whole bunch of different verticals, over 30 different patents. A lot of these stats are really helpful, just kind of give you some sense about what our business and what we do. One of the big things that we really tout is our ability to help our customers back. Those consultation calls you see in the second column, we've done over 50,000 of them. That's getting on the phone with our security consultants and our customers and saying, here's what you need to do better. Here's how you can go and fix those issues. We also offer program management to try to help our customers fix those issues that they find. Finally, at the end of the day, we want to get software secure as early in the development lifecycle as possible. So we've really tried to take a developer-centric view. We just launched last year a new service offering called Greenlight. It's built natively on AWS. Gives developers near real-time results. I like to call it the spell check for developers, but by way of security results. So they can get almost instantaneous feedback as to what's going on with their applications. We support a variety of different languages and frameworks. We have integrations all over the place to make it easier for customers to consume results. And a lot of our scans now are coming direct from APIs. That means we're being built into those CI/CD pipelines and making it completely transparent. So that's a little bit about Veracode. So let's now talk about why we needed to go and look for other solutions. So by way of AWS, we're continuing to grow as a company at 30% year over year. That's huge. And what that means is we need to be able to create solutions that scale with our customers and our business. And so for us, one of the biggest things is we had to go and look at a cloud provider that was going to be able to partner with us and be able to scale at the rate that we needed. The other big challenge was being able to wrap the controls around all of those environments such that we could prove to our customers that we were doing the right things, and when we weren't, that we were very quickly fixing them. So that's really the reason, that's the precipice as to why we had to go out and look for a cloud vendor, and then why we ultimately had to go and look for another solution to be able to help us look across the environment for all of those different configuration gotchas, right? There's thousands of potential configurations in AWS, and any number or combination of them can get you into some trouble. So we needed to have a way that we could really look from a centralized perspective across the entire environment and be able to give some of that intelligence. So why did we ultimately go with Check Point? So for us, what we found when we went to the market, natively, AWS offers some great security solutions, but a lot of the security solutions work inside of an account. And when you're the size of Veracode in doing a pretty large scale deployment in AWS, it really makes sense to have some segmentation. So you have different accounts that are being used for different purposes, different product lines, different efforts, different projects. And so for us, we're at a spot today where we have over 80 AWS billing accounts. We needed a solution that could look across all of those accounts and give us that visibility, but also the control. So the compliance aspect, is kind of the first piece, right? And then, as Monier talked about earlier, one of the big things that we saw as a differentiator, quite frankly, was the ability to actually go and do some remediation. It's no secret that security teams are being asked to do the same amount of work or even more today with same resources or even less resources. And as hiring is getting more and more difficult, there's a skill shortage. You have to find ways that you can utilize the technology to be able to make the difference in security. You got to be able to close that gap. So for us, finding a solution that could help us go through and actually identify issues, but in addition, go and remediate some of those, that was kind of a key differentiator. One of the other things that we kind of quickly learned early on is that we had a partner with both AWS and Check Point, but especially with Check Point. They were willing to listen to our concerns. We could give them feedback on the product set. And at this point, they were actually still Dome9, an independent company. But even after Check Point acquired them, we've seen that same level of partnership. So for us, it's been a great business value, both by way of an investment in a tool, but also in terms of a long-term relationship and being able to grow our respective businesses. So kind of where did we shake out? Well, it took us a while to get to results, but not that long. What we found is the Dome9 solution gave us visibility quite quickly. It wasn't quite plug it and forget it. There was definitely some legwork to be done, but for us, it was, we went and started adding the accounts, and we were able to start to get some visibility across the environment rather than just inside of each account respectively. What we also found was that we needed to be able to give these results to somebody, right? As we were finding these issues now, we had to be able to operationalize them. So we worked with Check Point and kind of came up with some different strategies to be able to do this. Ultimately, what we've done at this point is actually leverage their APIs. So we're generating reports based on where the results are coming from and sending those reports to the development teams or the operations teams that are supporting those different products. And it's through that partnership that we've actually, you see the stat up the top, we've been able to improve our overall posture by 35%, right? And for me, as the CISO, the guy who's responsible for the security of all of the things, that's a huge stat. Being able to take your security posture and say, here's all of the things that we care about. That's another thing, was we found, kind of the out of the box compliance bundles that Dome9 offers to be good. And there was a lot of things that you could check, right? Monier, I think, referenced, something like 2,000 different checks that they can do. What we found was we probably didn't care about 2,000 because, quite frankly, we're not utilizing all of the service offerings that AWS has to share. So we worked on building some custom compliance bundles, and we're able to parse those down and get it to something meaningful for us as Veracode, and then start to action them. And once we had that traction, we could really work with our counterparts inside of the development organization and the operations teams to actually make a difference, to change our security posture. And that has been a huge differentiator for us, right, as we're talking to our customers about being able to secure the data that we're putting up in the cloud, as well as being able to go through and review from a compliance perspective, as we're going through with auditors and things like that. We're able to illustrate the very things that we're talking about from a policy perspective, but with reports being generated right out of Dome9. Finally, the CloudBots infrastructure is a very cool one. Dome9 really had some forward thinking here in terms of being able to set up a check, right, and say, hey, I want to go evaluate the posture of this particular configuration. Let's say, are you using encryption on the S3 bucket? And maybe that's something that you really care about. So once you hopefully achieve that compliance state, right, of getting everybody utilizing encryption on S3 buckets, you can actually go and create some remediation, some automation that will remediate those items in real time or near real time. So if somebody goes and unchecks, from a configuration perspective in AWS, S3 bucket encryption, you can go and have the solution turn that back on. And not only do that, but also alert you. What the great thing from my perspective is now I don't have to have an analyst reviewing every single change. I get notice when a change is made about something that I care about. But if it's the middle of the night and I only have one analyst, operating, I don't necessarily have to be concerned about that configuration change. It's going to go back to a compliant state, and then we can review it when we have more bandwidth to do so. This, in my opinion, is the true value that Dome9, Check Point Dome9 really offers. So from where do we go from here? For us, we're going to continue to figure out how we embrace that notion of automated security. How do we go about making sure that development teams are seeing that information very quickly, so that when they go and make a mistake, they're able to go and fix the configuration. From a perspective of what Veracode offers, right? I want the very same thing for my developers on their infrastructure, just as they're doing, code quality and reviewing, their code for flaws. I want them to have that same level of feedback in their development life cycle for the infrastructure, so that they know when they're making a configuration change that that's not a secure one. And that, when they're putting something that potentially might put the company at risk, that they're not able to do so. Or if they do have those permissions, that it's being remediated in a very responsive way. So that's the Veracode story in conjunction with Dome9 and Check Point. I very much appreciate everybody taking the time today. We have about 15 minutes left, and I think I'm going to turn it back over to Monier. And we'll take some questions. So Monier, over back to you.
Hi guys, it's actually Josh. Hopefully my audio is doing better. Yeah, hopefully my audio is doing better. Apologies for the audio issues earlier. Our first question actually is for Monier though. I was wondering if you could tell us what differentiates CloudGuard Dome9 in the market.
It's all good. CloudGuard Dome9, Cloud9, it's all good. Don't worry, Josh. So that's a great question. I want to say first that there is a very strong complementary tie-in here with AWS, and any public cloud provider. But we do complement strongly based on the fact that we're tying in through native APIs, and that's kind of partial to the answer. The other one obviously is agentless. As I mentioned, there is no download of software or installation. You can install this within 5 minutes, and put yourself to the test and come talk to us. It is, customers are installing this very quickly, and it's because of it being agentless and it's cloud native API driven. The other thing is because of the subscription model that you tie into this platform, we actually provide continuous up-to-date compliancy all the time. We're continuously updating framework, so you never have to kind of worry about, what's the latest requirements out there? Is the framework up to date? That's all taken care of by the platform. Another point here is around the type of security. It's prevention-based. It's not just after the fact detecting and then protecting. It's prevention from the perspective of finding issues before they happen, and also remediating everything and just being able to have the ability to do that. The last one I'll throw in there is an important one. I think it's the paradigm of multi-cloud and how things are shifting very fast in cloud architecture, whether it's virtual machine, containerization, serverless. Dome9 is continuously following suit. It is up to date. It's a single pane of glass covering your multi-cloud environment, covering architectures that are there today, coming up soon. Don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about, hey, my operations team need to now learn about serverless, and they need to understand how to secure serverless because developers are running down and deploying on serverless. Dome9 will take care of that for you. It is continuously being updated to the latest cloud deployment scenario and cloud architecture. Okay, so a little long-winded, but it's important for those points to reflect that. Hopefully I answered that question. I'm happy for anybody else on the panel to jump in as well.
That was great. Ryan, I have a question for you. What was the biggest challenge in rolling out Dome9?
Yeah, Josh, thanks. So I would say the biggest challenge, right, is once you have the results, what do you do with them? For us, we had we went from 0 to 100, right? We went and got all of these reports, and then it was like, now what? Who needs to action them? So for us, it took us a little bit to figure that out. But ultimately, what we decided was we have a security champions program here at Veracode, which is basically we have folks inside of our development and operations teams who also wear security hats. And we tapped them and said, hey, listen, can you help give us some context around these things as well as be able to take them back to the team to get them actioned? And that proved to be very fruitful. And that's quite frankly how we were able to go from less compliant state to a much more compliant state once we had the information. But it was a struggle at first because you're now inundated with all of this information about bad configurations essentially. And we took the initial approach of, okay, well, the security team will go and start to action them. And what we quickly realized is we can't start to make these changes until we know what the implications on the environment is, right? Are we going to potentially, lock customers out of data that they should be seeing anyway? So for us, it was I think the biggest challenge was figuring out how we operationalize it. And for us, that took a couple of months, but we were able to get there.
Great. Hey, Munir, we have a question. Is CloudGuard Dome9 approved for AWS GovCloud?
Yes, so it is available on GovCloud today. We are very close to finishing our last certifications for FedRAMP.
Very cool. I was wondering, Munir, if you can tell me, is Dome9 integrated with other AWS security services, like, say, Security Hub, maybe GuardDuty?
Sorry, I was on mute again. So yes, and yes, we are always active looking at AWS services, security services, and we are integrated with Security Hub as well as GuardDuty.
We have one more question I'm wondering if you can help with, Munir. If a customer is creating a customized compliance control, how much time will it take for that compliance check?
My fingers are finding issues with my mute again, so sorry. The rules are very intuitive and very quick to put together. It could take anywhere from seconds to a minute to put that together. It's very intuitive. It's very fast. The platform lends itself pretty well to kind of putting regular expressions together to make that happen. So I'd say, anywhere from seconds to minutes.
Great. Munir, we got another question for you. How do you guys help improve and enhance the existing AWS security tools? Since they, the tool, obviously CloudGuard Dome9 is very powerful, and how do you guys enhance our AWS security solutions?
So again, we are an APN partner. We actively meet with AWS product teams to understand what's coming down the road, what's changing in terms of security services, and how we integrate together better. And I'll say one thing: when we go to the extent of putting solution guides together, we sit down and architect, whiteboard how these things will work together. It's not about just sticking a logo against AWS and saying, oh, we support that service. We whiteboard, we understand how the solution comes together. We do get customers who ask us, how do I integrate together with this? I've got Splunk, I've got GuardDuty or Security Hub. Tell me, show me particularly how this works. And we'll say, yeah, sure. We'll do this live with you, or we'll give you a solution guide for that.
Great. Ryan, question for you. Other than compliance, what value did you get out of Dome9?
Yeah, so the compliance obviously is one of the biggest pieces, but I would say the other is visibility, right? Again, AWS provides a great set of security solutions to be able to report on things, but from our perspective, again, we really like having that centralized view, right? So I can go and say, hey, I want to see all of the assets in this account. What are the things that are utilizing this this configuration versus a second configuration. For me, I think that really the other biggest value is the visibility across the environment, and then on top of that, it's the compliance, right? So knowing what the state of all of the things are is half the battle, right? You can't go and say you're compliant unless you can say, I know what all of the things are. So I think the biggest thing would be visibility.
Great. Munir, we have a question from the audience. What happens if you want to create your own new compliance rule? Is that possible? How would you go about doing it?
So we have a foundation feature called the Rule Builder, and that will take you through examples as well as walk you through, intuitively how to put that together and create rules. Again, as I mentioned before, it takes seconds to minutes. It's not about making this complex. One of the sounding and very resonating things that our customers talk about is the usability aspect of this. It's the ability to build simple, intuitive rules. And when we start using those rules and putting it together, it's just, it's almost like a layman. Anybody can actually understand it. It's not about, the context of it is not about making it complex. And we've set about repeatedly making sure that you can use that, you can build it yourself, you can take the platform and do many things with it.
Great. I have another question. So I'm really excited. If customers want to learn how to use and get access to Dome9, how can they do it? Do you have a free trial? Can I go through the AWS Marketplace?
So there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can take the steering wheel yourself for 15 days and do a trial. And if you go through checkpoint.com on our products page, you'll see there's a trial page. You can also request a demo, and then we'll walk through that with you as well, and have the team answer your questions. We'll also understand your kind of layout, your enterprise layout, your architecture, and help be the trusted advisor for you and see what it is you need. Dome9 is not it. I mean, there's other, and I don't want to be selfish in plugging other stuff, but there's other CloudGuard products here. And if you think about cloud entirety and the things that need to be there, then as we have that conversation, you may find there's other needs there that you need to fit your requirements.
Great. Is there any limit to the number of accounts that I can manage at once?
No, there's no limit. It's really the scale of what the platform is. So we're not putting any bounds or limits on number of accounts.
Great. All right. We got one more question in. A customer is looking to achieve RMF accreditation. Do you have templates that customers can apply to meet the maximum amount of RMF controls?
So that would be, we've had those requests. It's easy to make that and put that together as part of our professional services, solution. So again, having that first conversation, understanding that better, understanding the architecture will help put that together. Great.
And where can people find out, Munir, where can people get more information about CloudGuard Dome9?
So navigate through to the cloud orchestration section of the product within Checkpoint. There's a lot of good literature there. There's also videos there around the product itself. If you want to get a bit more confidence with usage by customers beyond Veracode, we have a customer testimonial section on checkpoint.com that will actually walk you through videos and quotes and testimonials of how customers have used CloudGuard Dome9 as well. Or just reach out to us as well. I mean, contact us if there's something you don't see. Contact us and we'll help you out.
Hey, Ryan, how would customers learn more about Veracode and how to use and the security use cases you guys support?
Yeah, absolutely. Veracode.com is the quickest way. Go on over to our website. If you want to learn more, we have ability to sign up right on our website for more information or even get a live demo. So do that. If you're a security professional and kind of want to know what we do from from the consumer's perspective, I'm more than happy to speak to folks. You can find me on LinkedIn or whatever. But yeah, head on over to our website, sign up for a webinar or one of our live demos, and you'll be able to get some more information.
Ryan, quick question. If I'm not using CI/CD pipelines, is it possible to still send source code files to Veracode for review?
Absolutely, yeah. So even though a majority of our large enterprises now are utilizing automation to be able to send us scans, our primary use case is still very much by utilizing we're a SaaS platform, so logging in on a website portal and uploading your application. So absolutely possible. If you prefer to do it via APIs, you can do it that way as well. But yeah, we certainly have a multitude of ways, even if you're not utilizing CI/CD pipelines.
So it looks like that's taken care of on a self-service portal on your side. So great. Quick question. So Dome9 uses APIs to access AWS accounts. What is the communications charges for that, Monir?
So there is no direct charge to the customer for that. So we're a platform that's tying in and using, the APIs themselves. We're obviously getting, it's a trusted credentials architecture, and so getting the trust for those credentials is what's needed. But wherever you're running AWS services and whatever you're using, we're tying into that. You're just exposing, the trust for those services, and we're making use of those APIs. So there's no direct cost to you at all.
And Ryan, I don't know, is Veracode available today on the AWS Marketplace?
So we're actually in the process of becoming available on the AWS Marketplace. So again, it's one of those partnerships that we have continued to build. So stay tuned, and you'll be seeing more from us in terms of that availability.
Great. Well, we're running out of time. That was our last question we had. I really want to thank both our presenters, Monir and Ryan. Thank you so much for joining in. I'd like to thank our audience for joining. I had a great time, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Have a wonderful day, everyone.